Hello, I'm Zach Van Gemmer, and this is my Unit 2 presentation covering the Gilded Age and the Progressive Era. This is my thesis: the free market economy and laissez-faire negatively impacts the lives of the citizens of the United States, proven in the Gilded Age. Free market prevented the majority of Americans from becoming successful and leading to a worsening quality of life. The majority of these were from businessmen controlling monopolies on products, leading to a significant amount of political movements and changes. Here are my key pieces of evidence that I'm going to use to support my thesis. First of all, the working conditions of the lower and middle class were terrible due to the free market. And my second one will be labor unions and strikes were demonstrated to limit the power of businesses in the free market. And finally, the third one is an increase in urbanization for labor jobs in the city factories leads to worsening living conditions for the people living there. All right, evidence number one. The working conditions of the lower and middle classes were terrible due to the free market. This is first presented in child labor is necessary due to the need for cheap labor in factories and mines, and it benefited businesses by requiring lower wages and being small enough to complete specific tasks in small spaces. As Squarespace.com. So at this time, it was a good option for these businessmen to follow through with this cheap labor. It just made sense to them, even though it's very morally wrong in our day and age. And the fun fact is during the 1900s, 18% of all people working in America were below 16. That's crazy to think about. And long working hours between 10 and 12 hours a day, with the work conditions being significantly unsafe and may lead to workplace injuries and deaths. Many people got injured at work working big looms. They might get their finger stuck in a machine, and working to 10 to 12 hours a week, you're not going to be completely on top of it and super aware of these hazards too, which is even more dangerous. And most of the people working in these factories were low income and immigrant families who could not provide for their families, which continued to increase demand for immigrants. All right, evidence number two. Labor unions and strikes were demonstrated to limit the power of businesses in the free market. Workers started to collaborate and unite to fight against the dangerous working conditions by forming unions. They wanted to collaborate, work together to improve their life. The Homestead strike for the rights of steelworkers ended in a loss for the workers, who made no progress due to the violence caused during the strike. Attackers attacked Pinkerton barges and guards protecting the facility, ending in the National Guard establishing control over it. When they started to realize that, and what majority of these protests and strikes that are written down is that whenever violence was involved, not much got moved forward and successful. But the strikes demonstrated the workers struggling for their workers' rights due to low wages and dangerous work environments, leading to progressive legislation changing to break monopolies and protecting worker rights. This led to much further change, which they further found that peaceful and strikes were a lot more successful in passing legislation to make them actually improve their lives. Evidence number three: an increase in urbanization for labor jobs in cities' factories leads to worsening living conditions for the people living there. The book, How the Other Half Lives, shows that, in this quote, that large rooms were partitioned into several smaller ones without regard to light or ventilation. At this time, the lives of the people in the cities were neglected and unsanitary, putting many people at risk of injury and disease. This book showed a highlight on the lives that people just didn't see back then. They didn't know about these people that were struggling in the cities in awful living environments, and this book brought it all to life. And the major issue faced during this time were overcrowding. There were too many people in one room, lack of light. They just couldn't see anything. This is like just around the time where the light bulb was created, but these people were too poor to probably afford it. And poor sanitation. A lot of people got sick and were not able to do anything. And lack of ventilation, they couldn't really breathe, and dangerous building standards. There's no regulations of buildings, very limited. But the progressive movement improved citizens through public utilities and child labor laws and an 8-hour work week, allowing factories to have livable conditions. This is very crucial and a great step to success. All right, conclusion. Large monopolies and businesses profoundly affected ordinary citizen labor jobs in the United States and resulting in exploitation of living and working conditions for them. They just got exploited. They were used by these big business people. The laborers formed unions and went on strikes to fight for their worker rights being violated and to limit the abuse created by the business owners using the free market policies established. This is all rooted through the free market. The businessmen are just doing what makes sense to them and what's profitable, but there needs to be policies in place to get these people back in line and to allow for these workers to gain their rights back. And the house conditions for these laborers moving to the city were deplorable. It created a hazardous environment and leading to policies to improve the living conditions of immigrants and low income citizens. And instead of just pushing these people into the shadow society, they just kept, no one really knew about them. They pushed them away, didn't want to see them. So this was a time where we really got to understand like we need to help these people and improve their lives and get them back on track. The exploitation of the free market led to progressive movement in the progressive era, improving the lives of the majority of the citizens. There's many movements, and in the final chapters, we started to learn that there started to be policies and laws and amendments that help to protect these people from all these serious issues they were facing. And here are all my sources. My primary source was How the Other Half Lives. I use secondary sources was history.com, the Library of Congress, and the Bill of Rights Institute. Thank you very much. Have a good day.